Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Racing Insiders podcast. I am Kate Dillon from Crate Insider, and here with my co-host Steve Hendren from Hendren Racing Engines. So, Steve, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, actually. It was a good Monday. Wasn't horrible Monday.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. That's it's always good news when you have happy things to say.
It was, all the phone calls today was like good, legit questions and good, legit answers. So that was always good. And, a couple new potential sales there. So, yeah.
Great. I noticed obviously in our area, a lot of races got rained out.
Yeah.
And are you finding that with the good majority of your customers over the weekend?
No news is good news. So that means that, people obviously were able to race and nothing bad happened. But, I haven't heard a whole lot about that.
Gotcha.
Cool. I mean, my son's race rained out this weekend.
Yeah, when Harris rained out too.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Well, I mean, we were here in town, and I was, and it was, pouring buckets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was in town this weekend for the most part. Yes, absolutely. And let's see, we got a couple folks here, and we've actually got some really great questions to cover on the show tonight. So I'm excited about that. Yeah. So first we have Scott. He's always our first commenter. So Scott from California. Hi, yep. S&K from California, where the weather is warmish and we can't escape the politicians.
Yeah, well, you can. It's called moving, which I did years ago. But
yeah. Well, and here's a question for you from Robert. He says, Steve, drinking Bud Light tonight?
No, I'm drinking Miller.
Yeah.
Light.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm not. Well, never mind. First 10 minutes of show, I can't be political, right? Is that what?
No,
the algorithm says?
You just can't be like dropping F-bombs,
Oh, no, I'm not going to drop an F-bomb. I was going to drop another bomb, but
Well, we don't need to go there, but yeah, you've really kind of switched overall, haven't you?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I still
drink Ultra.
I still drink Ultra sometimes, but as far as which I know it's the same company, but hey, the main thing is like Bud Light's going to be free here before long.
Yeah, I heard they got dropped from Costco.
Their stocks dropped. I mean, it's like pretty.
It's really sad though, is all of the independent beer distributors and, the stories that I'm hearing about, people, regular American working people who are losing their jobs.
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to this, question. I think a giant apology would be, but hey, like if anybody can learn anything about anything, it's like, the way this country is now, no matter what you say, you're pretty much going to make one half or one contingent of the country really mad, either the far left or the far right.
I would rather.
It's like choose your fighter.
I would rather make 99.9% of the country happy rather than 0.1%.
Yeah, the really loud 1% that doesn't even drink beer.
The really loud 0.1% that doesn't even drink beer.
Yeah,
They're drinking Cosmos.
Yeah, but yeah,
there's that.
There's a decision. They made it.
But I was never really a Bud Light drinker anyway, honestly. I drink it, but it wasn't like, ooh, got to drink Bud Light,
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't hardcore, but there's always some in my fridge, like to make like chiladas or something, or if people are going to be coming over, it's just like it's just like the vanilla of beers. It doesn't,
of course,
it doesn't show that you're super classy, but at least you didn't pick out like some bottom rung crappy beer,
Hams or some shit.
Well, I didn't want to offend. I didn't want to offend anyone on the show. The one that was the worst when I was way under drinking age in high school was, I remember, now I'm going to age myself here.
You're going to say this. I know you are.
I remember when Keystone came out. It was the bottled beer in a can. Oh my God. That was the most horrible beer.
Yeah. Keystone is nasty as shit.
Oh, and I'm so sorry to irritate my Pennsylvania friends. But
yeah,
we're talking about like in 89, 90. I'm sure they've improved it by then. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I will not turn down a free one.
Yeah.
At like Dad's race in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Because, a bunch of my Yankee friends up there, or Pennsylvania friends, that's what they drink, is that Keystone shit.
Man, and Milwaukee's Best was another one.
Okay,
too.
that's the worst. That's the worst shit ever known to man.
I really asked him not to drop any F-bombs or S-bombs in the first 5 minutes.
I was about to say
4 minutes and 24 seconds.
I said shit.
I know, that was an S-bomb.
Oh, well, there's that. Sorry.
Yeah. So I guess and maybe we need to maybe I need to have a new timer on the show. How long you can hold out before saying a swear
I
word?
thought you said F bombs.
F bombs or S
I
bombs.
got you. All
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
I probably didn't read my lips. I didn't
Yep.
enunciate apparently.
And if I'm like snorting in the microphone, I apologize. Like, I don't know what we got going on here today. It's like this hazy shit from I don't know, Canada or something, like wildfire crap, but my allergies are going crazy today. So I apologize for the snorting.
Wow. Yeah, you kind of, you always have a stuffy nose almost. So
Well, I didn't. I mean, it's allergy season for me. So
when is it not allergy
well,
season for
that.
you?
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, what, maybe mid-December?
Probably.
Is that
then it's super dry, so I'm still
right?
sniffling,
Yeah,
or I've got like, the vid or something.
yeah. Yeah, dude. The Thing. We call it The Thing. Is what one of my favorite podcasters, the Maverick of Wall Street, that's what he calls it, is The Thing. Yeah, the thing, the other thing that's on the table here is that's Pippi wanting some attention here. All right, so we got a couple folks here, and Henry and Christy says hello again, and thank you for sharing all this great information. Absolutely, our pleasure. And Chad says PBR, LOL.
And Pippi's showing his asshole to the camera.
He's only showing the side view there, and it's so dark over there that you can't even see him. So he's just blending. He's like blending.
Super pink.
Yeah. Just stop making fun of my cat. Okay, all right, I've got some legit really good questions here for you to answer, and for us to talk about, a little bit of that. Pippi is sitting on said questions right now. Okay, all right, here we go. All right, so the first question actually is I didn't forward all of these to you, for a preview, but so this is one. Apparently this is a question that you get quite often at the shop, and the question is, how much oil do you add to the 525?
It's going to vary a little bit. Like in the system that we sell. So we sell, like on our 525s, we have a remote mount. I mean, they all need remote mount oil filters, but ours actually attaches to the block. So the lines themselves are less than a foot long each. And the way we attach that, basically you're running 8 quarts in the system.
Really? So that's going to be the same as a 60. Well, I mean, what a 604 is rated at, although we put 7 quarts into a 604 or 602.
Yeah. So it's basically 8 quarts. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And that 7.5, 8 basically is where that comes out. Now if you've got like you're mounting your remote oil filter like 3 feet from the engine, then obviously it's going to take more oil. But the correct way to actually check the oil level is once the engine's up to temperature, operating, all that stuff with the engine running, you want to make sure that oil level is just below the sight plug, basically on the passenger side kick out of the pan.
Okay. Then just below that, you said?
Yeah, just below it.
Okay. Great. That was a good question. All right. The next one, we got a couple by email, which were very detailed and really good. So Henry says, the 411 ring and pinion versus the 486. Steve said the 411 is better to run than the other. And if you could explain exactly what you have found in testing and how this really works, that would be great. I've already started getting parts around to change mine, but there is other information on the internet from a quick change rear end provider saying it does not matter. And this is from Henry. And he actually submitted a video. We took a quick look at it.
Well,
but tell us a little bit about the 411 versus the 486.
So actually the video was actually about 8-inch ring gear versus 10-inch ring gear.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about anything other than that. So from this is my experience, this is my testing, this is what I've seen. It's not going to be anybody else's information other than my own. So what I've seen in this scenario is, I watched the video. I did. So, you actually sent them to me earlier today. And what I've seen is, and I'm not going to name the manufacturer, but what I've seen is the only thing that they sell is 10-inch ring gears. And whether it's 411, 486, whatever, but that's what they sell is 10-inch ring gears. And I can tell you for 1,000% fact that in our dyno testing, chassis dyno testing, actual real world shit, that the 8-inch performs better. Overall horsepower numbers are the same. Overall torque numbers are the same. But the rate of acceleration is completely different.
Well, and I would guess, I mean, this is just my little hypothesis over here, is that if you were talking about a super engine and you've got 8 or 900 horsepower, it really probably wouldn't matter because you
It's
can always overcompensate with more
it's not
horsepower.
going to make a difference.
But when we're in a low horsepower application that, where we're looking to cross every T, dot every I, and find every single advantage
Yes,
that we can. I think in that video they talked about with the 10-inch ring gear, almost like since there was more surface area rotating, that it would be less apt to heat up. That tells me, one thing we talk about a lot is, of course, 30-60 gear oil and how it'll slough off and not cling to it. What do you think about
It-
that with the cooling?
if I was running like a super late model, I would have a 10-inch ring gear.
Okay, and why would that be?
Impact load.
Okay.
Okay, so if I'm running like a crate, which is they were referring to crates,
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do.
specifically in this
Yeah.
video.
Mhm.
I'm running an 8-inch because the impact load is not nearly what it is as like a super. So you're just not, and it's not like you're, by impact load is like on off the gas.
Okay.
And on a super, when you're on off the gas, you're hitting that ring gear with just tremendous amount of freaking pressure. So yeah, 10-inch ring gear in a super late model, that's what I'd be running.
Mhm.
525 on down to a 602, I would have an 8-inch ring gear. And one of the things that we've noticed, because my brother actually used to cut 10-inch ring gears down to 9-inch ring gears because that'll actually work. So in the, he was doing that. But what we noticed was when we were doing that, obviously we're using liquid to do it. We noticed the amount of parasitic drag in the coolant that we were using on the 10-inch ring gear in order to cut that thing down. And it was tremendous. Like parasitic drag means the liquid that is going through that gear is just stuck to the gear.
Mm-hmm.
And parasitic drag means a lot as well. So obviously with an 8-inch ring gear, you're going to have less parasitic drag than you are with a 10-inch ring gear or a 9-inch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I guess we probably have a lot of guys out there with a 4 9-inch rear ends with, depending on different applications.
Right,
yeah.
Of course. So, I mean, it all applies.
I mean, is that the right term? Like 4
Yeah.
9-inch ring gear, and is it ring gear? Okay.
Yeah. So like the other thing is, well, you threw me off there. Hang on.
Sorry.
I got to get my train of thought back. But at any rate, so there's that. So then once you start researching oils, meaning gear oils, then you start noticing differences there as well. So, you need the protection of the ring and pinion, but you also need the least amount of parasitic drag you can possibly get. And I mean, we're still talking crate application. I'm not talking super late models because, again, I mean, years and years and years when I ran supers, we were running like freaking 90 weight, But like then when you go to, again, the Daytona one, like the 3060, you're talking probably one of the least amount of parasitic drag you can get in that oil that we've found. And we actually tested with that company, different gear oils versus their gear oil, and not only rate of acceleration, but actual power at the tires. And it makes a hell of a difference. So, that's the other thing you got to take into this equation. And I've never seen on my chassis dyno, and back-to-back testing means it's about as quick as you can change rear ends. But I have never personally seen a point where a 10-inch ring gear on a crate car outdoes a 8-inch ring gear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the problem now, I may be off on this, but I think the 8-inch ring gear quick change is a winner's. And I believe they have a patent on the 8-inch ring gear. I'm not 1,000% sure. But that's the reason why other manufacturers are saying, oh no, there's no difference between a 10-inch and an 8-inch. And I know there's another rear end manufacturer actually close to us who actually has a 9-inch ring gear on a quick change. and they swear by it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe the 8-inch was made by. I'm not going to name the company because I don't want to like get in all this pissing contest about who's got the best rear end. But that being said, in that video, it was stated that, hey, we've seen no difference. Well, depending on where people are racing, I've seen no difference in the lowliest level of headers versus the highest level of making the most torque, making the most horsepower headers if you're running on a shitty track.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So anyone can win. Yes. Is the difference between winning and losing any of what we're talking about? Probably not at some places. But I guarantee if you go to like someplace like Gaffney, South Carolina race or Withville, Virginia or something like that, you better have what the next guy has. Otherwise, you're behind the 8 ball.
It's interesting to bring up parasitic drag, and I always find that a really fascinating concept, and I love talking about it. How it was explained to me is that it's when the fluids like sticks to itself. So for instance, you've got the centrifugal force, so you've got a gear and it's spinning around, and that oil starts sticking to itself. So you start off with this gear that's maybe 3 inches in diameter. By the time all that oil is sticking to itself, you've got a big gear that is now running into another gear, but it's like 5 inches and they're just running into each other.
Well, I mean,
the other thing that happens there is because that gear oil is staying in place and you have the friction, all of that, it's heating up. And anytime we have heat, we're going to lose horsepower. We want to keep things cool. And that's what's great about the 3060 is that it goes on there, it lubricates and creates a film on the gear without creating this gigantic, monstrosity. And then it falls right off so it can be cooled with the rest.
The same thing goes for engines. So when you look at a crankshaft, if you run the recommended, let's say 8 quarts of oil in a 602 or a 604, you end up with the crank in the oil.
Yeah, it's swimming in it.
So it's essentially swimming in it. But you've got the crank whipping up the oil. So what does that do? Number one, it creates heat, it creates oil temperature. Number two, you got all that parasitic drag on the crankshaft. In a perfect world, if we were allowed to, we'd have oil shed coatings on the crank, which they make that. So but we can't use it obviously because we're limited by rules. But an oil shed coating on a situation like that would increase power exponentially.
Kind of like a Teflon, like how you put oil in a Teflon pan.
It's essentially a shed, yeah. So
interesting. All right, so I see another question here from Jeremy. He actually he commented on a video, and I did grab the question from there, but I see he's here, so we'll go ahead and drop it in here. He says, on the road traveling for work and watching from the Atlanta airport.
Nice.
Yeah.
Not nice. Sorry, you're in Atlanta airport.
I know. I was kind of thinking the same thing. I was kind of formulating my own comments there. Sorry for repeating a question I asked on another video. No problems. Would a thermostat like the Stewart's with a bypass accomplish similar to the ART system, but maybe a less elegant solution? And hang on just a second. He's got more to it. And he says the 8 quarts. Oh, that's a totally separate thing. So, in here he was talking about the bypass holes drilled in it like the Steward offers, and he's testing one of those currently, but he hasn't raced it yet, and he's using a 160 degree thermostat.
So my customers who cannot afford the ART setup, then that's normally what I would recommend is the Steward setup, or the Steward thermostat. It does not accomplish the same thing, but it's going to be better than just running a standard thermostat.
Well, and for anybody who's listening or watching, actually, we just came out with a video today doing a product overview of the ARTS thermostat. And I actually have one right here on the show so that, we can talk about it a little bit. The biggest difference between this setup versus just a regular thermostat is this isn't just a thermostat, but it's also a regulator, and that it's regulating the water temperature.
Correct.
So do you want to talk about that at all?
No, go ahead. You just released the video.
I did.
How about
So
it?
I know I'm not really an expert or anything. So we've got the thermostat here, and and then with this hose right here, it connects to the top of the water pump, and that way you're recirculating that water. That way your water pump doesn't cavitate.
Correct.
The other big thing is you don't get a big hot cold shock because the other thermostats will just block off the water. So it's stuck in the engine. But once you get that flow going through, there's still all of that cold water that's in the radiator. And now that's going to go into the engine.
Correct.
And you end up with a little bit of a flash of a shock.
Mm-hmm.
So that's uh that's where the regulating it goes, because we're able to like kind of recirculate, and that way the temperature can flow through the water rather than just being a stop and go situation.
Correct.
Great. And all right, so oops, back to the questions here. And Jeremy says, the 8 quarts thing was a lesson I learned myself before I knew better. Really heated my oil and water temps up.
Oh, absolutely, it will. 100%. Yeah, because not only are you like dealing with it whipping around the crank, but you're like throwing oil, like a huge amount on the bottom of the pistons. So the more the oil touches the bottom of the pistons, I mean, you need a certain amount obviously to lubricate the wrist pins, but the more it's on the bottom of the piston itself, like the head of the piston, bottom side of the head of the piston, then the more oil temperature you gain, because it's an internal combustion engine. So you've got combustion going off at however many thousand whatever degrees. And that is transferring straight into the oil, which also transfers straight into the water system.
Yeah. Great. Oh, and Henry liked the answer, appreciated the answer to the question there. And we actually have another one from Henry as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this next one, and really again, Henry, thank you so much for submitting these, because
Absolutely.
it's well explained and full question. It's always harder, with the live version. I know if you're on social, if you're on your phone, you're trying to type this stuff in. So it's nice to have like a fully formed question here. So the next one is the race fan versus the GM steel 4-blade.
Mm-hmm.
On the race fan website, it shows a chart on where the 3-blade moves more air than the GM 4-blade. If the 3-blade moves more air, that means it takes more energy to move more air. If Steve could explain the design of the fan, how the design of the fan helps the engine in racing applications, that would be very helpful to racers, I think. I figure the weight alone may make up for it.
It doesn't take more energy, it takes less.
And why is that?
The reason being is because you have air flowing through 3 blades rather than air flowing through 4 blades. In other words, if you've got, let's say, I'm not going to do the math on this here, but let's say you've got a 4-blade fan spinning at, 7,000 RPM. And you've got a 3-blade fan spinning at 7,000 RPM. Which one is going to let more air through the blades? Right? Does that make sense? So in other words, once you get too many blades, you're almost blocking off the air from flowing through those blades. And in order to pull air, you have to have air flowing through the blades.
Yeah, well, I think another way to look at it too, and you can correct me if I'm off base on this, but that even if you have the weight in between these fans isn't tremendous, but the big difference is where the weight is. So on a race fan, we have the center section that is, predominantly most of the weight of the entire race fan. Whereas if you've got, if I've got, here's probably a good way to put it. If I'm wearing a 10-pound backpack on my body, I mean, I can swing my arms. It's no problem. If I've got now 5-pound sandbags in each of my hands and then try to swing my arms, it takes a lot more effort in order to swing that, because the blades weigh hardly anything.
Essentially, but yeah, I mean, no, it has to do with, and this is especially rings true if you got a shroud.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got a fan shroud, again, you're talking like blades that wide and you got 4 of them, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Versus you got blades that wide and you got 3 of them. Which one allows more air to go through those blades unimpeded?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So doing that, yes, you're going to flow more air through that radiator automatically. We did this, years and years ago when we started doing the 2-blade fan versus the 4-blade. Hell, I did this with Mike Marlar. I think Marler was one of the first ones to actually run it, honestly, because he was driving a crate car for somebody. Mike was, and he's like, "Oh my god, yeah, we put this 2-blade on here and it cut the freaking temperature in half, or not in half, and like 20 degrees, off the temperature." And so that kind of proved our theory on it, which was, if you've got a really good shroud, then you can get away with running way less fan blade, and it's actually going to cool and pull more air.
Okay, great. All right.
That's my explanation. Again, opinions may vary, but that's what I've always gone with. And I mean, even like on my own son's car, our 604, we run 2 blades all the time. I don't care what time of the year it is. 60 or 525, we run 3 blades.
Okay. Okay. All right. John has a question here. He says, "Are limited rules state automotive gas with race gas? I can't even say these words. Are limited rules state automotive gas with race gas blend only? What's the best race gas and automotive gas to run, and what blend? Thanks much."
That's some vague rules, because I was going to say, if it's going to be like automotive gas, well, E85 is a thing.
Yeah, 85 is an automotive gas.
It's an automotive gas.
I don't know. I mean, what is an automotive gas?
Yeah,
I mean, a gas that you put into automotives. I mean, methanol is an automotive gas.
Yeah.
It's used in some stuff.
Well, I mean, yeah, but yeah, that's my goodness. What kind of
limited? It's a limited class.
Yeah, that is like so vague. I mean, automotive gas is anything.
It really is.
I mean, hell, I can run your car off carburetor cleaner if I was standing there over the top of the carburetor, like spraying it. Don't recommend doing that, but no, the autumn. God, that's so vague. It's ridiculous. I wonder if it was like purposely written vague, just so it allows everything.
I don't know. I mean, and maybe to try to keep out like the oxygenated fuels or something. I mean, I think it depends. John, tell us what area of the country you're in, because that'll kind of give us an idea too.
Yeah, I know John.
I know John's a customer of mine as well, but I don't remember where he lives. Because, I mean, could you do something like a Sunoco like 93 or Sunoco 110, like what they have that comes in barrels? I think the big thing that you'd want to look at, of course, would be to have consistency in your fuel. The only problem with like your regular pump gas is that, if the truck just left and it pumped all of this new fuel in there, that pressure can really stir up all the sludge that's at the bottom of those tanks. And then you have sludge in your gas. I mean, for our regular cars, we're okay with it because we're not pushing them too hard. The other thing that can happen is a whole lot of condensation in the tanks. So what kind of water tank, content? And the problem is, it could be different tomorrow than it was 3 days ago. So you just don't have if your carburetor is set up, you can't set it up for all of these varying conditions. It really messes things up. So the biggest thing is consistency in fuel.
I'd like to see a clarification of the rule, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that rule is so vague. It almost allows for anything.
Oh, and John said does say no E85 or methanol also.
Okay, no E85 or methanol. Well, then CHP is legal. It's an automotive gas.
Well, it's like they want to blend. Methanol. I don't know why they'd want people blending fuel.
I don't know. It's like appetite for destruction right there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So, yeah, if you've got more comments on that, John, we can definitely continue to talk about it. But,
yeah.
Otherwise, more clarification.
Give me a shot tomorrow, and I'd be happy to talk about it to you on the phone.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Johnny has a question. He says, "Why would a scented fuel additive bubblegum be considered illegal? We all have to agree the E85 smells like ass."
Oh, it does smell like ass. Well, unfortunately, a lot of these series have gone to the point where, it's, I don't know, it's like the tire testing thing. To me, it's complete total bullshit. But if I own it, I ought to be able to put what I want in it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, because it changes the composition of whatever fuel that is deemed to be legal in whatever series that you're running.
Okay, this actually reminds me of a story of when I was a kid.
Well,
yeah, it isn't one of my dad's stories. So I remember my dad he was running like this clear fuel, which I'm pretty sure was methanol. And I remember watching him put like red and blue food coloring in it, along with like a spearmint type of a scent. And, back like it wasn't until just a couple of years ago, and I was talking to my dad about that story, that I, thought he was maybe cheating, and
Yeah.
he's like, no, the reality was it was completely legal, but he didn't want anybody else to know what he was running.
Right.
So he was doing that to disguise that
Yeah.
that he was running that. And so yeah, I guess with that though, is that maybe some of these fuel scents could potentially mask the smell of something that is straight up illegal. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, I mean, we actually used the bubblegum stuff in our concoction that me and my brother came up with, just to hide what it was.
See, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
But at the time it wasn't illegal because we didn't have any of this bullshit fuel testing crap going
Same thing.
on.
You just didn't want people to know what
No,
you were running.
Exactly. We just didn't want anybody to know what we were running. But yeah, so basically how it works now is they each series probably has like some shitty lab that they're using. And, the manufacturers have to submit their, base sample or whatever. And if it's got anything else in it, then you're automatically out.
Yeah. And Doug says, yeah, fuel scents cover up the no additives.
But it's like dead obvious. Like on the 85, it's dead obvious what the hell you're running against. I mean, when you lift off the gas, is it a blue flame or a yellow flame? So that should be obvious to everybody. Yellow flame is E85. If it's got a blue flame in it, bitch has got methanol in it. So
I mean, that seems like a pretty easy. I mean, all you take is a fuel sample and light it up, and you've got a go no go flame, right? Yeah, I remember that from chemistry class, of like, depending on what color the flame was, that it was supposed to mean something. Yeah. On fuel, since we're continuing on that topic here, Joe says, "Hi, I have a gas question too. If you were mandating a fuel for a 602, what would be your first economical choice other than fuel from the corner store?"
Honestly, most manufacturers that I know of usually make a fuel that is like anywhere from between 98 and 100 octane, and usually it's pretty economical because not a lot of their people run it right now. So,
well, out of curiosity, isn't E85 cheaper than that, or is it just?
Yeah. I mean, well, he said race gas.
No, I have a gas question. I think he just means fuel. I mean, if he really means gas, but for fuel,
fuel. Then
if you were mandating a fuel for a 602, what would be your first economical
it'd be
choice?
E85, 100%. And then the series can claim, they're saving the environment too, because E85 burns way cleaner than race gas.
Yeah, and I mean, I would guess. I mean, since E85 is made from corn, it's probably most of it's. I mean, it's got an American kind of contingent to it, not just all foreign oil. I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing here. I don't really.
It's like
I haven't traced it back.
It's like corn liquor. So
yeah, interesting. Okay, and Jeremy has another question. He says, "Steve, how do you guys like the new Hoosiers on your son's car? I'm seeing more guys local try American racers."
Yeah, we actually tested back to back. 3 weeks ago, a month ago.
Okay.
On the American Racer stuff versus the Hoosier stuff. He was actually better on the American Racers. Believe it or not. I mean, now this is one track at one test, so that doesn't account for much. But he was actually better on the American Racers because no change to the car. Once we got as fast as we could possibly get on the American Racers, we put the Hoosiers on, and he slowed down a 10th because our conclusion was it was the sidewall difference.
Oh.
And it's like the car went to being dead nuts perfect, how he liked it, how he was comfortable, to, now it's laying on the right rear a little bit more in the corner.
Squishier.
A little squishier is what I'm getting at. Yeah. So we kind of attribute it to a sidewall difference.
That makes sense.
But no, I mean, hell, I grew up racing American Racers or McCurry's back in the day. But
are they the same thing?
Yeah, that's
American I didn't know
Racers, that. Old McCurry.
Huh. Okay.
the old EC2s and EC1s and EC3s we had to run back in the day.
Gotcha. Okay, I have another question for you too. What would be your distributor recommendations for a 602 versus a 604?
Both the same. If you'd asked me 2 years ago, it would have been the fast distributor. But now, unfortunately, because I don't know what the hell's happened with them. I mean, it's another company now, I think, but we haven't been able to try any of their stuff. But
now, so all the fast stuff originally started as Crane Ignition.
Yeah.
Crane Ignition was acquired by Comp Cams.
Correct.
Where it became Fast Ignition. Fast existed, and it was rolled into that. And then Edelbrock and Comp Cams merged, and now Edelbrock is actually the managing company.
So, I mean, as much as I'm not saying I hate to say it because I've used this shit for years. I mean, MSD is about your only way to go. So MSD built distributor locked out.
If you can, because
if it's legal for your dealer.
Right, because you're not a big fan of HEI. So tell us why. I know there's some series that mandate HEIs. Yeah. So of course we sell them when we can. But what would be your reasoning on why are billet distributors better than HEIs?
Because HEIs are 1960s technology at best. Can you trigger an HEI with a MSD box? Yeah, you can. But most series that require HEIs don't allow that to happen. So, my choice would be that billet distributor along with triggering it with a MSD box.
Well, and let's talk about the right distributor gear for a 602 versus a 604.
That's an issue we actually run into a lot. So a lot of people don't realize that. So a 602 has a cast iron cam. A 604 has a steel cam. So both engines will run off of melanized gear. So melanized distributor gear with no problem. But you cannot put a cast iron gear on a steel distributor without ruining everything.
Or steel cam. Yeah.
Steel cam. And you cannot put a bronze gear on a cast iron cam without ruining everything. So the melanized, generally, not generally. I mean, it works on both, but normally, I'll recommend a melanized gear. That way you can't screw it up, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, and Mike has a question. What is the high side engine temp when running methanol using a 180-degree thermostat?
To me, like I had a conversation with Art earlier last week, actually. And, obviously he builds radiators and he does this thermostat thing. You were just showing everything else. So the main thing is, like, to me, there's no high side temp so long as you're not pushing water out of the system. Once you start pushing water out of your coolant system, then that water is replaced with steam. And then that's where you start effing shit up, basically.
Great. Okay. And Johnny says the door is wide open for American Racer. Plus they're $30 a piece cheaper. Yeah. I'd like to see competition in that market. Maybe it would force Hoosier to quit gouging the Saturday Night Racer.
Oh, I agree 100%. Yeah. I mean, I've always been an American Racer fan. So yeah, I would certainly be all for that.
Yeah.
But I remember back in years ago. Well, I ran Carolina Clash back in the day when it was basically American Racer only. So it was the 11s and the 56s what we had to run, and both of those tires were freaking awesome. I mean, that 11 would go forever. That 56 is just bulletproof. So.
Well, I think the challenge comes in that so much of the series point money comes from tire money.
It is. And, Hoosier, I mean, not knocking them by any means, but they just throw the cash out there, which obviously they're able to do that because they charge so much for the damn tires.
Well, they did. And then weren't they bought by like Continental?
Yeah, I believe they were. Yeah.
And that's why during COVID, when there was like a rubber shortage, we had a hard time getting tires because they were really going into passenger vehicles. I could be wrong on that. If anybody has more information on that.
You're not.
No. So it's always interesting how all of where business meets you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
it
Yeah, you're
meets the
yeah,
real
you're right.
life kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's always interesting.
Well, and then American Racer had a problem back then too, because they had like a whole shipment of rubber coming from wherever they get it from, and it was coming across the country, and whatever trucking service was bringing whatever they were bringing, they dropped that load and took something else to somewhere else because it paid more.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, you want your rubber? Yeah, it's going to be in the middle of Oklahoma right now.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like,
yeah. Sorry, you know, it just took a pit stop. You know, you said you weren't in a
it's
hurry.
like BFE, Nebraska, you know.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. 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 Familiar with that Death Valley place? Yeah, it's right there in the middle. It'll be fine. You'll
Exactly.
get it. It'll be all right.
Right.
All right. Here's another one from Jeremy. He says, back when my dad and uncles were running street stocks, you could spray the American Racer with soap and the sidewalls would bubble. Wouldn't hold air on the trailer overnight.
I
Interesting.
never ran into that problem, honestly.
Huh.
I mean, different tires probably than what I always used to run, but
Yeah.
never had an issue with that.
And then Doug's adding on to the tire conversation. He says, Hoosier G60s siped are about $225 each here in California.
That's freaking crazy.
Are the G60s, aren't those 8-inch modified tires?
Wheel modified. Yeah.
God, what?
That is unreal. Holy shit.
Wow.
Golly. And it's a piece of shit too. That's
At least
that is a shit. Oh my God.
that's shocking.
That freaking sucks.
Weren't they usually about $80? Am I in the ballpark anyway?
All right, last time I raced open wheel modifieds was just before I left California, and
it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, I know, but they were probably like $70 or $80. Yeah,
okay. I mean, or Doug, if you would tell us what they were before things get before the world came apart.
What were they 3 years ago?
Yeah, that's that's the baseline.
Not 225.
Right. Yeah. Not that. Oh, and actually Mikey says that is that we're selling G60s non-siped for 160. And Mikey is up in Oregon.
Oh, okay.
So hey Doug, maybe we can cook you up with Mikey there and do that. And if you need a siper, we just added a heat siping tool and a tire groover to the website, and we just added those items today. Nice. Yeah, actually, because they came in on Friday, but we added them to the website today. So we've got a couple of new products. So if you decide you're going to like groove and sipe your tires, it was one of Mike's suggestions. So we've got the replacement blades and kind of the full meal deal there to get things going there. And then more on tires. Then Johnny says, back when Stan was running Fast Track, we ran the hell out of the Goodyears. Yeah, I'll tell you, I've certainly heard lots of stories about how much people hated the Goodyears when they were running them, but how much they miss them now that the Goodyears are gone. And let's just try to stay nice and not super political. Please.
I can get political about that.
I know you can.
But
let's just talk about the tires.
Yeah, the tires themselves are piles of shit, which is, why back in those days, you'd walk through the pits and you'd smell like freaking grape Kool-Aid everywhere. So we were tire doping the hell out of them things.
Well, it wasn't illegal.
It wasn't illegal at the time. It didn't become illegal until they went to Hoosiers, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah,
which I won't talk about live on the air.
No, I think that's a post cars racing show, sitting around with beers and BSing.
Knowing the people I know, that I know how all that shit went down, which is why we no longer run Goodyears. But there's that.
Yeah. No, it was funny. I remember we were at World Finals, several years ago, like either that or like the May race, when it's not just crate stuff, it's all the other stuff. And you and I were walking by one of the pits and you're like, oh,
that's Lambert Blue.
Yes, and we're like 50 feet away.
Oh, smell some Lambert Blue out here.
From 50 feet away, for real. All right. Oh, let's see here. We've got Chris says, I bought a 650 Willys carb for my 602, had 67 jets in Texas that close and need more jet. Thanks. I'm not sure.
I think he's asking it if is that close.
Oh,
is that close?
Oh, okay. Or do you need more jet?
Need more jet? That'd be a great question for Willie, but I doubt it. I doubt it, because odds are he's probably at a higher altitude than they are, depending on where
Hard
you're
to
at in Texas.
say.
I don't know, but I would certainly talk to Willie. I mean, call Willie. He'll talk to you
Yeah.
on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt it, because most of what we're doing nowadays, carburetor wise, whether it's us or Willie's or David Smith or whoever else, we're doing everything with the air bleeds and emulsion bleeds. So jets nowadays don't mean a whole lot, honestly.
Or at least not as much as they
Not as much as
once
they used to.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, another question. Henry says, what RPM range does a 602 start to really make power?
Shit. About 3,300 to about 52, and then they start falling on their face.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't it's a very low RPM deal. And one common mistake a lot of people make is they try to turn them too much. And then as they're turning them too much, you're out of that whole torque band as you're coming off the corner, and it makes the car feel lazy. And it's not only a 602, it's 604, it's a 525. It's any of these crate engines, they just start gearing the shit out of stuff, because a lot of guys are used to just hearing that RPM sound, and they think they're going fast, but they're actually slowing themselves down.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, and Mikey says he's trying to talk the boss into making the trip to the cars show.
There you go.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I think it's January 5th and 6th. I'm actually really starting to work on that this week. And, now that we're about 6 months out or so is about the time when I'm really starting to pull that together. So for any of my manufacturers who are part of the cars show, you can expect to hear from me in the next couple of weeks here. We'll get you dialed in. All right, Charles has a question. He says, when is Alex racing again?
This weekend.
Yeah, this Saturday.
I don't know. I'm not sure if it's a Friday, Saturday, or just a Saturday deal, but
it's
like 5,000 win at Gaffney.
You know what? I think, I was on the phone for part of the time he was at my shop today, and I think he was saying something about like one day is qualifying and maybe, but he could have been talking about. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I was on my kind of own thing, but I remember hearing something about.
Well, I know that not. Well, this weekend he's racing down there. I know. I just don't know whether it's Friday, Saturday, or not.
Right.
Then a weekend off, and then he's going back down there with the 604. And I believe it's not the 5th, 6th. It's the following weekend. I believe that's like the 20,000 win.
Okay. So. Yeah. Saturday at Gaffney. That much I know.
I know that.
Now, whether there's a day before, don't know, but.
Of course, Saturday at Gaffney this last week got rained out, and it is July,
postponed.
So that does postpone.
Yeah,
postponed,
totally different. But you deal there.
It does happen.
All right. So Johnny asks, Steve, will these ARTS setups work on an aluminum open late motor?
1,000% they will. Yep. And if you have any questions and any of that, I would certainly call Art.
Yeah.
He is perfectly happy to answer your calls and give you all the information you know on that. But yes, they will. 1,000%.
Yeah. And he's, he may have a slightly different suggestion than the thermostat we're using on these.
Yes.
It might be slightly different. I know that we're now, I hate to be a premature promoter, but I know it's been in development for the 525s, and it's like I'm expecting sometime very soon to get a glimpse of that. And I mean, like, I don't have pricing or anything, but I know it's on the horizon. I know it's happening.
Well, yeah, we've worked with him on the 525 stuff. So
yeah, and he was testing out some different deal there, and so looking at
as far as an open engine, he's got plenty of them running open engines.
Yeah.
Especially, I think he's got a lot of those big block modifieds up north and stuff like that are running them.
Oh yeah, I mean that's where they started running them a while ago. Yeah, for sure. They were having.
I think he originally
having issues
for that.
Yeah, and he just thought it was a nothing deal, and then now it's not a nothing deal. It's a thing.
It is a thing.
Well, and I'm glad my shelves are stocked right now, so I'm in good shape and for what we need, and can kind of go through, and so that's good. I was kind of just getting a couple here and there before, but we're pretty good for right now. All right. Donnie and Shane said,
Mhm.
"Hello, Kate and Steve. Thanks for sending some rain out to eastern Nebraska. I
Uh-huh.
think that's Nebraska.
Yep.
Nebraska. Yeah. We got rain every day since last Monday. Expecting more tonight. You get them breaks at Pep Boys. Appreciate it. Next time, send some whiskey with the water." Yeah. 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 Welcome to our world. Welcome to our world. Yes. And and then on the same note about the 602, what RPM range should you run on a 604?
64 max. Oh,
But
64?
on a 604,
No,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, 68 max is it's always been my recommendation. Because, you know,
not the max. What RPM range does the 604 start to really make power?
oh,
When we are talking about the range where it makes power.
yeah. I mean, honestly, from the initial hit,
Mm-hmm.
so let's say 2,500 RPM.
Mm,
Yeah, you're producing torque and horsepower at that point. Where it starts falling off is right around 6,000
okay.
generally. So again, this is what you have for a combination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gotcha. Charles wants a reminder for Alex to tell him not to forget the scales.
No effing shit.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Third fast overall, forgets to go across the damn scales.
Well, because he thought he
Yeah.
was all wrecked, I
Well,
guess,
he
right?
he thought he was wrecked
Mm-hmm.
because he effed up the second lap. Well, I mean, honestly, it wasn't his fault, but it was just the dude who drove through the slime, whatever,
Yeah.
who was on the track with him qualifying at the same time. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, yeah, always go across the scales. Lesson learned.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all have to learn
he'd,
these
he'd,
lessons.
he'd have started to pull the heat race because we could have fixed what was effed up on the car. So
Yeah. Yeah. There we go. Gotcha. Now,
all cosmetic.
yeah. Now, do you have any other thoughts and things that you want to add? Anything new in your world in the last week?
No, not really. Not that I can think of. Yeah, nothing off the top of my head.
Oh, I have other news. So if you're looking for a 604 that's blueprinted by Hendren Racing Engines,
Oh, you got one for sale.
I do. I do. It's on the website. We just put it up today, and so you can pick that up, and we have an engine. So, yeah, and we've added a few accessories, but that way it's still customizable. But it'll have Crate
Right.
Racing USA seals on it when they come in.
Yep.
But in the meantime, we've got added a water pump, distributor wires. I mean, that basic stuff you're going to need that everybody would need.
And so like waterline kit on the
Yeah, yeah. And then we've also made it so that you could upgrade to the ARTS thermostat system. And if you want to add a front drive or you can use components that you already have, or we've got a really good contingent of bolt-ons on our store. But just wanted to do something that was really a solid piece that would be adaptable for multiple different applications, whether you're whether you want to run tandem pump or you want to run everything on the front, you've got a baseline you can start with.
We used to do this actually before COVID, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, once we broke out of COVID and we got so busy, it's like we were kind of putting CrateInsider at the back of the line because I had
the back of the line
because I had so many things going through the shop. It was like, oh, yep, Kate can wait. Kate can wait. Kate can wait.
Kate got pissed and took all their stuff off the website is what happened.
She did.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, don't be putting baby in the corner. and I don't know if you guys all, I don't know if people actually know this. We are about 30 miles from Lake Lure, and that is where Dirty Dancing was filmed.
Exactly.
So there's a whole Dirty Dancing festival that happens here. Exactly. I don't know if it's already happened or if it's going to. I don't know. It's going
to be this summer sometime.
Yeah, it's every summer. All right, well, we got a few more questions. Let's see here. Johnny says, back onto the gear oil topic. We're running the Amsoil Severe Gear SAE 250. Thoughts on that gear grease? Way too thick / heavy?
I'm not familiar with it. I can tell you that I've tested Amsoil engine oil, and it's not all that. So I would assume that the gear oil will probably be about the same. Amsoil is one of those pyramid companies, and they want everyone to be an Amsoil dealer, and they want again, it's a pyramid company. So no, I'm without testing, I can't tell you, but I'm just telling you what I know about it. And I've seen it firsthand, and I've tested their oil, and I had a pyramid dude come in and like try to sell me the oil, and we tested it, and their engine oil sucked. So we can take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are applications where it works really well, but when we get into this super specialized racing environment where, these companies are so specialized in really trying to come up with the best of the best of the best, they're making a decision to be providing a product for 1% of 1% of the population, which is racers, versus a much larger, with Amsoil, with a gear oil. I mean, if you can say, hey, it can go in your tractor, and hey, you can put it in your truck or your car or your, do you make it's a company decision. Do you make a product for everybody, or, how specialized? And I don't know the answer to whether this is a specialized item or not, but racing oils are really kind of on their own island.
Very much so. And it depends on there's
so many things. It depends.
Oil is like so crazy, man. Like, I don't care whether it's gear oil or whether it's or engine oil. It's so crazy on how that shit's rated.
Yeah.
That I mean,
yeah,
but I can tell you that like a lot of the companies that I deal with as far as oil goes, whether it's gear oil, whether it's engine oil, stuff like that. I mean, we're talking like people in the higher echelon of motorsports. Maybe their oil's branded under a different name, and maybe it could be at the Formula One level. Nobody knows. But they produce it, and we're using it under a different name. So yeah, I'll just put it that way.
Yes. All right. And Jeremy says, would a ton of condensation on the butterflies of a carb for E85 be normal in humid environments, or would that worry you about water in the cell?
No.
Shocked at how cold the intake gets.
No, that's perfectly normal. As a matter of fact, like one of the things that you have to pay attention to, especially if you're running E85, same thing with methanol. Let's say methanol E85, highly oxygenated race gas like CHP. So what ends up happening is, yes, you got water condensation on the butterflies. What that ends up ultimately doing, like let's say you're idling around the racetrack, is it freezes. So when that freezes, it not only freezes on the butterfly, but it freezes on the idle transition slot. So if you go to take off on a restart and you just been idle around, and then all of a sudden you stab the gas, the thing's going to cough and go nowhere. So what we have to like drive into our people's minds who use our carburetors or engines, carburetors, whatever, is you have to clear that thing out and get actual raw fuel running across the butterflies to clear out the idle transition slot in order for that thing to take off. And if you're not doing that, that thing's going to be a pile of crap on a restart.
That was a good explanation. Oh. All right, next up, this is an interesting question. Hoyt says, where can I find an R2C filter base for a 4412?
Good Lord.
Oh, no.
I don't know.
I guess you could try and see if R2C is still operating. I mean, they said
Nobody
they were
knows.
a couple years ago.
Nobody
but
knows.
I haven't paid any attention.
I used to be really good friends with people who worked there, and my really good friend left and went to another company. And then after he left, that place went to shit. So
yeah. It like imploded, couldn't get product.
I don't know.
So we left that island back in 2017.
Yep.
And so haven't looked back ever since we discovered Walker.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have an answer.
Yeah, I don't, because I really don't have a good answer for, I don't really have an answer for the 2-barrel carburetors for the 4412s. I just don't have a good answer for those. So yeah. All right. Last few questions, because we're running up on our time here. And let's see. Donine and Shane asked, do you do IMCA seals?
We do not. Sorry.
No, because we're out of the area. And Scott says, watched your video on the art system. Great job. Well explained. Thank you. I try.
Nice.
I try to ask lots of questions so that I can sound like I know what I'm talking about a little bit. Anyway, try to cover it all. Anyway. All right. Any final thoughts from you, Steve?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for being part of the show. And we're planning on, I don't think there's any holidays or anything. We'll plan on being back next Monday.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay, so if you're listening to us on the podcast or seeing the replay, we go live Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Crate Insider Facebook and YouTube channels. You can also catch us as an audio podcast on Spotify and Apple iTunes and Google Play and wherever you listen to podcasts. So thanks for being here. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It always helps us out. Hit the like button, and we'll see you guys next week.
Later.